AI never sleeps, and this has been yet another insane week. We have a new AI that can control expressions, and the best part is, it can do tongues sticking out. Google releases an AI that can change the angle of an existing video, plus another AI that creates super smooth interpolations. FLUX 1.1 Pro just got an upgrade, plus we have another AI that generates textures for 3D models. Microsoft releases an AI that improves the performance of AI agents by a lot. Plus, Google accidentally leaked their AI agent for a short amount of time. NVIDIA releases an AI for creating storyboards and a lot more. So let's dive right in. First up, we have a really powerful, free and open source image restoration tool. This is called InstantIR, and here's what it does. Let's say you have a really blurry image and you want to add more details or you want to restore it to the original quality. Well, it's really hard to do so, especially if it looks like this, if it's really blurry and you don't have a lot of data on what the original image looked like. So in order to restore it, you need a technique called blind image restoration. So this InstantIR uses a diffusion model to restore these really blurry images. So here's the before, here's the after. Here's another example. You can see traditionally it's really hard to even sharpen or add details to this image since it's super blurry, but this InstantIR can restore this image with pretty high quality. So again, here's the before, here's the after. You can also add text prompts to guide the restoration process, which is a really neat feature. So for example, here's the original image. Without any prompt, it will generate this cherry blossom photo. However, if you add an additional prompt, let's say pink rose, it would actually turn these flowers into pink roses while maintaining the composition of the original photo. Here's another example. Let's say this is the original photo. It's super blurry and grainy. Now, without a prompt, it would generate this rabbit. However, if you prompt it with piggy, it will also turn this into a pig while maintaining the composition of the image. Here's another example. So this is a really low quality original photo. If you just plug this into InstantIR, it's going to give you this. However, if you prompt it with fox, this is what you get. And if you prompt it with cat instead, this is what you get. Now, they've compared this with other leading upscale methods such as Real Essergan or Superior, which you might be familiar with if you've been playing around with Stable Diffusion. And this new one, InstantIR, is the column on the right. So let's say this is the original photo, and if you especially focus on the area with the faces, you can see all previous methods do a pretty bad job in terms of actually getting the faces correct. But if you go to the rightmost column, which is InstantIR, this by far has the best looking faces. And then same with this example of the statue. If you zoom in on this area and you compare these other upscaling models, again, you can see that this rightmost column, which is InstantIR, produces the best quality. The awesome thing is they've already released the code on GitHub, so you can download this and run it locally on your computer. There are also some Hugging Face spaces available for you to test this out online. So anyways, I'll link to this page in the description below, which contains all these links, and you can poke further. Next up, we have MoGe by Microsoft, which stands for Monocular Geometry Estimation for Open Domain Images. And this is a really impressive tool. This allows you to input just one image and turn it into a 3D point map, as you can see here. And in the middle of this page, you can actually play around with some of their generations. So you can drag your mouse around to see how good this is. Now, notice that it doesn't actually fill in the gaps behind objects because, of course, it's really hard for it to know what exactly is behind an object from just one image. Here's another example with a lot of objects in the image, but it seems to be able to predict the depth and the spatial location of these objects with pretty high accuracy. Now, image to 3D point cloud is already impressive, but it can do more than that. It can also take a video and generate a 3D video from that, as you can see from this example. Here's another example. And here's yet another example. And by the way, this isn't the first time I showcased such a tool. So previously I talked about another very similar tool by Google DeepMind called Monster, and this can also reconstruct an entire 3D video from an existing video. So if you want to learn more about this tool, see this video. Anyways, back to MoGe, they've already released a Hugging Face space for you to try this out online. So let's try this out. I'm going to upload this photo of a marketplace and then click submit. And let's see what this gives us. Very nice. So it gives us a depth map, plus it gives us this 3D viewer. And as you can see, it does generate the 3D model of this marketplace to some extent. Very, very impressive. Now, in addition to this free Hugging Face space, they've also released the code on GitHub, so you can download this and run it locally on your computer. The links are all up here, so I'll link to this page in the description below. Next up, we have XPortrait 2 by ByteDance. With just one photo of a person, you can make them talk and change their expression with just another reference video. Now, if you've been following my channel, you've probably heard of Live Portrait, which does exactly the same thing. This is also a free and open source tool which allows you to easily change anyone's expression with another reference video. Now, just from my initial review of XPortrait 2, it seems like this one handles movements and expressions a bit better than Live Portrait, which is already amazing. Plus, it also seems to handle non-realistic images like anime and paintings a bit better than Live Portrait. And you know, the thing that gets me the most excited about XPortrait is it does tongue as well. Live Portrait cannot do tongue sticking out, but as you can see from this example, XPortrait 2 handles it beautifully. Plus, they claim that this preserves the emotions and expressions of the reference video with high accuracy. And it's really good at handling fast and jerky movements and emotions. And here, if you compare this with Runway's tool, you can see XPortrait 2 handles it way better. Runway's tool is just super rigid and it doesn't capture the full expressions of the reference video, whereas XPortrait 2 captures everything. Anyways, they've just announced this, so they haven't released the code yet, but I'll keep you posted as soon as they do, and I'll probably do an installation tutorial on this, so stay tuned for that. In other news, this project by Google is super useful. It's called Recapture, not to confuse it with Google's Recapture, by the way. But anyways, you can take a video and it would change the camera angle of the video. So it would create a new video that looks like it was filmed from a different perspective. How cool is that? Now, the first thought that popped up in my head was this is going to be a total game changer for for videos. Videos, guys. Videos. Anyways, here's how it works. There are actually two ways to create a video at a different angle, which is also known as the anchor video. So one approach is to take the original video and estimate the depth of each frame, and this gives you a sense of how far away things are in the video. It then uses this depth information to create a 3D model of the scene. In fact, Microsoft's MoGe tool, which I mentioned earlier, also creates these 3D point clouds, so it's essentially the same technology. Anyways, these point clouds are also created with an estimation of where the camera is in this 3D space. So based on the camera movements, which the user can specify, it can move this camera around to create a new video at a different angle. So that's one way to create an anchor video. Another approach is to use an AI called a multi-view diffusion model. In a really simple sense, this AI basically creates a new video by looking at the original video and imagining what it would look like from a different angle. And it would use this diffusion model to generate a new scene based on all the info available. Now, both these methods work in creating anchor videos, but there might be problems with it. For example, for videos with higher action, it might be blurry or have weird artifacts, or there might be black areas where the camera could not see, as you can see over here and over here and here. So to fix these problems, Recapture uses a technique called masked video fine-tuning. And this process helps make the anchor video look smoother and more natural, plus it helps fill in these blanks. Now they've just released it, so there's no code out yet for you to try out, but I'll keep you posted once they do release the code. Next up, this tool by Tencent is super useful. Imagine you want to create a 3D model of an object like a unicorn or a dinosaur, and you want it to have a realistic texture that looks good from all angles. This is really important in creating 3D models for games, movies, and other applications. Well, current methods for creating textures for 3D models are often pretty low quality, and they're also inconsistent when viewed at different angles. So, for example, here's a comparison with this new MVPaint tool with other 3D model texture tools like Sync MVD, Texture, and Paint 3D. And you can see, especially for this fox's face, none of the other three tools got it correct. Somehow they've added an extra face on the back of the fox's head, which is obviously not correct. Plus, for some of them, the back of the animal's shirt is also not correct, but as you can see, MVPaint handles this beautifully. Same with this plushie here. You can see the other existing methods aren't great at handling details, especially at the back of the plushie, but MVPaint is able to predict this very nicely. Here's another example where you can see the quality and accuracy of MVPaint is just way better than these other texturing tools. Here are some more examples from MVPaint. All these models are just very consistent across all angles. Really quickly, here's how it works. So it consists of three main stages. The first stage is called synchronized multi-view generation. This basically takes one image and creates multiple views of the 3D model, and it creates a coarse texture. It then goes through a second stage called spatial aware 3D inpainting, which fills in the missing parts of the texture by inpainting, or basically it's filling in the gaps in the 3D space. So as you can see, these red dots are gaps that are not observed from the original photo, and it kind of has to use AI to guess what should these parts look like. And then finally it goes through this UV refinement stage, which improves the texture quality by making it more detailed and smoothing out any remaining inconsistencies. And this tool is super versatile. So as you can see from this example, they basically got GPT to generate a lot of prompts for different textures. And then they applied these textures to the same unicorn model, and here's the result. So you can see it's very consistent across all these models. And this is a very powerful tool for generating 3D assets for video games or movies, for example. The code and the weights are coming soon, plus it seems like they're going to have a Comfy UI implementation as well, so stay tuned for that. I'll also link to this page in the description below where you can actually play around with some of their generations. So you can use your mouse to drag and move this around and see how these models look like at different angles. All right, next up we have a new open source image editor which is super powerful. This is called ACE, which stands for All-Round Creator and Editor, and this is by Alibaba. This allows you to edit images simply by talking to a chatbot. So here are a few examples. Let's say this is your input image, and then you prompt it with maintain the facial feature of the character in this image, and then generate a man wearing a beige suit walks through the city with high-rise buildings behind him, etc., etc. This is what you get. And then if you take that resulting image and you upload it into this chatbot, and then you write, expand the image, this basically outpaints the image, and this is what you get. Now, if you take that resulting image, and then again you prompt the chatbot with clay image, well, it turns this character into clay. And now if you take this clay image and this building from Shanghai, and then you prompt it with fuse this image with this image, and then the prompt is Oriental Pearl TV Tower in the city background, this is what you get. It basically adds the tower to the background of this image. Now, if you take this image and you prompt it with add text travel on the image and then add text sculpture on the image, this is exactly what you get. So a super versatile tool. You no longer need to inpaint anything. You don't need to mask anything out manually. There's no need for control net. or Laura's or face swapping, you can do all of this just by prompting it. Here's another example. Let's say we have this original reference image from Spirited Away, and if you prompt it with change the color of the dragon to golden, here's what you get. And then if you take that image and you write change the hair color of the girl in the image be green and let her smile, I think this is a typo, and then add sunglasses to the character in the image, that's exactly what it does. It turns her hair green, it adds sunglasses, and it makes her smile. And so on and so forth. Here's another example. So let's say this is the original image. If you then write let her in a snowy night, the English here isn't really correct, but you can see it does turn the background into a snowy night. And if you take that image and you prompt it with she wears black dress, it does change her clothes to a black dress. And then here's where it gets super useful. So you can also write adjust the camera to a side view, and it actually turns this image into a side view. And then if you take that image and you prompt it with extract the edge map of the image, it gives you an edge map. Thanks to Mureka for sponsoring this video. Mureka is an AI music generator, but you might be wondering what makes this different from Suno or Udio. Well, instead of just prompts, Mureka uses reference tracks to generate new music. This allows users to maintain the details of their uploaded track, which gives you a lot more control than just a text prompt. One of Mureka's standout features is you can choose a consistent vocal style for your generations. For example, you can choose from male and female styles tailored to different genres like pop, R&B, and rap.
I dreamed of crafting a song. I dreamed of craft. I dreamed of crafting a song. Put the path.
This allows for greater personalization and consistency within tracks.
I dreamed of crafting a song, but the path felt so hard.
Another cool feature is you can simply hum a melody and upload it to Mureka, and it will generate a complete song based on your input.
Had to believe, oh my destiny.
Hard to believe, oh my destiny.
Mureka also has a marketplace where users can buy, sell, and trade AI-generated music securely. This provides a platform for creators to showcase their work and for companies to discover new music. Click the link in the description below to sign up for Mureka. When you sign up, you get free credits to try it out. So again, there's no longer any need for ControlNet or inpainting or any manual stuff. You can do all of this just by prompting a chatbot. Now, if you've been following my channel, I've already showcased a very similar tool called OmniGen, which basically does the same thing. You can simply edit images by prompting this AI. Now, this is already available and free and open source. Definitely check out this video if you want to learn how to install it and use it. Anyways, back to Ace, this is pretty much the same thing, and they've also released the code for you to download and run for free on your computer. Plus, they also have a free Hugging Face space for you to test this out online. Anyways, all the links are up here, so I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. I'm going to play around with this further, and if the quality is good, I might do a full tutorial on how to install this and use it locally, so stay tuned for that. In other news, this is probably the smoothest AI interpolation tool I've seen. They call this generalizable implicit motion modeling for video frame interpolation, or GIMM-VFI for short, and this beats all the existing video frame interpolation methods out there so far. And here's what it does. If you take an existing video and you slow it down, you get this result where you can see frame after frame. Well, this AI tool basically fills in the gaps between these frames. So here's the before and here's the after. How cool is that? Here's another example. You can see the interpolation, or basically how it fills in the gaps between frames, is just super smooth. It even works with high action scenes like this. So even though there's a lot of motion blur, it still is able to handle this very smoothly. And here's another example where if you slow down the original video, it's very choppy, but it's able to smooth out everything and generate all the frames in between. And if you compare this with existing methods, this one does a lot better at maintaining consistency of everything in the video, as you can see from these comparisons. So GIMM-VFI is this new tool, and you can see it's a lot smoother and more accurate than other interpolation methods. The authors claim that this method outperforms others in terms of complex motions, plus it can produce more accurate and consistent interpolations. As you can see here, even if the scene is high action and there's a lot of motion blur, it still handles the interpolation very smoothly. Really quickly, here's how it works. It has three main components. The first one is called this pre-trained flow estimator, and this is used to predict the bidirectional flows between two input frames. And then next we have this GIMM module, which takes the bidirectional flows as input and predicts bilateral flows at any time step. Basically, this is used to interpolate frames at any point in time. And then finally, we have this frame synthesis module, which takes everything and generates the target frames. And they've already released the code on GitHub, so you can download this and run it locally on your computer. Now, they did not specify VRAM requirements, but you do need to have a CUDA GPU as of right now. I'll link to this page in the description below for you to read further. Next, we have a really cool tool by NVIDIA called Consistory. This is a really easy way for you to generate storyboards or frames with consistent characters. Now, previously, to generate a storyboard with consistent characters, you do need to train LoRAs, or basically these mini models, on the appearance of your character. So, for example, if you want to generate images of Scarlett Johansson, you need to train this LoRA on a dozen or more images of Scarlett Johansson's face with multiple expressions at multiple angles, and then plug that LoRA into Stable Diffusion or whatever base model you're using. Now, training this LoRA, of course, takes time and effort, plus you need to find multiple photos of that person. But now with Consistory, you no longer need to train anything. So they explicitly called this a training-free approach that allows you to create images of consistent characters without any training or fine-tuning. So let's say you want to generate a storyboard or a sequence of images of this old man. So first you would prompt it with a photo of an old man wearing a hat, which would give you this character. And then if you prompt it with walking in a park, this is what you get. Now, instead of walking in a park, let's say you prompt it with writing numbers on a blackboard. This is what you get, and notice it maintains the appearance and the face of this old man. And then next, instead of writing numbers, if he's drinking beer in the bar, this is what you get, and again you can see it preserves this man's face in this photo. And here are some more examples: feeding a stray cat, eating dinner at a restaurant. It also is great at maintaining the style of images. So for example, if you're using an old story illustration of a kid as the starting prompt, well, here's what you get. This is indeed an old story illustration. So for the first image, he's wearing a school uniform. In the second image, he's walking with his mom, but you can see it maintains this old story illustration style. Here, the kid is reading a book. Here, he's climbing a tree. Here, he's eating his food. This seems to be a really uncanny image, by the way. He's holding the spoon backwards, plus this plate of, I don't know what, looks pretty disgusting, I must say. Here's another example. So here's a hyper-realistic digital painting of a happy girl with brown eyes. So this is what you get. In the first image, she's wearing headphones with her cat. In the second image, she's having a countryside picnic with her cat. And you can see not only does it maintain the same girl character, but also the same cat. And then here she's in the snow wearing headphones, and these are the same headphones that were generated in this first image. Not only can it maintain characters, but also certain objects throughout the storyboard. Here she's cooking some food, and here she's hiking with her cat in the mountains. So here's how it works. It's based on a diffusion model architecture, but there are two additional components to this. The first one is this subject-driven self-attention stage, which basically allows the model to share information between subject instances, and this provides consistency across all images in the storyboard. The second component is this feature injection stage, and this refines the subject across the sequence of images by blending features between images based on these correspondence maps. In simple terms, basically both these components are added to improve the character consistency across the storyboard. Now, as you can see here, if you compare their new method, Consistory, with existing methods that generate consistent characters, you can see that this new one performs a lot better in most cases, especially if you add in different components like changing the background or adding more objects to the image. Plus, you can also integrate this tool with ControlNet to control the pose of your character. So here's an example. First, if your prompt is a photo of an athletic 50-year-old man with gray hair, this is the man you get. And then if you prompt it in the beach, he's going to be in the beach. But you can also control the pose of this man with an additional pose image. And now if you prompt it with countryside with this pose, that's exactly what you get. You get this man in this pose in the countryside. And then next, if you add in this pose and the prompt in the park, this is what you get. And you can also upload images to use as a reference. So for example, let's say you upload these two images of this pink backpack. Well, now you can generate additional images with this pink backpack. So let's say in the Grand Canyon, you can see now it's this backpack in the Grand Canyon. Or in Boston, this is the pink backpack in Boston. Here's another example. So let's say you upload these two images of this pair of sunglasses, and then you prompt it with on a wooden floor. This is what you get. On top of snow, and this is what you get. A very powerful and useful tool. Now, they've already released the code on GitHub, so you can download and run this locally right now. Plus, they have a playground where you can try this out online. So again, all the links are at the top of this page, which I will link to in the description below. Next up, we have this new tool by Microsoft called OmniParser. And here's why it's so useful. In the future, we'll probably have AI agents doing things on our computer on our behalf, from replying to emails to gathering data, searching for information, posting on social media, etc. All the things that we do today, eventually we could just get an AI agent to do on our behalf. But in order for it to do so, it needs to understand what's on the screen, like buttons and icons, and know what actions to take. Now, we already have vision models like GPT-4 Vision and Claude and Llama 3.2, which can analyze images to some extent, but they're not great at understanding what's on a screen sometimes. They need help identifying which icons on a screen are actually clickable and what they do. And that's where OmniParser comes in. This helps the vision-based AI model, like GPT-4, understand what exactly is on the screen. So, for example, it can identify interactive icons on the screen like buttons and menus and understand what each icon does. Like, for example, this icon is a delete or remove function, this icon is a note-taking app, this icon is a weather or weather-related application, etc., etc., etc. Here's another example. So icon 17, which is this one, it identifies as a toggle switch, which is in the on position. And then icon number 18, which is down here, it identifies as a toggle switch in the off position. It basically looks at this mobile interface and identifies all the elements in this interface. And it doesn't just work on mobile, it also works on desktop. So here is a PowerPoint interface, I believe. You can see it also identifies all these icons on the menu and what each of them can do. Here's another example. So as you can see from this desktop interface, this OmniParser identifies all these elements on the page. Here are some more examples on different websites, and again, you can see that OmniParser is able to identify all the potentially interactable regions on the page. And the nice thing about this is you can plug it into any vision-based model like GPT-4 or Llama 3.2, so it's model agnostic. And here are the results. You can see that without OmniParser, the models by themselves do a lot worse. But as soon as you add OmniParser into the equation, the benchmark scores are much higher in most cases. I mean, look at the differences on some of these numbers. So let's just compare GPT-4 Vision, for example. On mobile, For text and icon, it has benchmark scores of only 22.6% and 24.5%. But if you add in OmniParser, it gets 94.8% and 57%, significantly higher than these two numbers. Same with on desktop. So before, you get 20% and 11.8%. After you add in OmniParser, you get a whopping 91% and 63.6%. A pretty crazy improvement. And here are some additional demos of OmniParser in action. So as you can see, this is quite a game changer. We're getting closer and closer to having AI agents that can actually autonomously help us do stuff on our computer. People have been talking about AI agents for like 2 years now, and we do have some so-called AI agents out there, but they still kind of suck at doing workflows that require going to multiple platforms and doing things that are not easy to pre-program. We're still not at the level where it can just navigate across different apps and sites and understand what to do. But with OmniParser, this really improves the understanding of these AI agents by quite a lot. Now, they've already released the code on GitHub for you to download and try this locally. They've also released a Hugging Face demo where you can upload an image, basically a screenshot, and you can get OmniParser to scan all the interactive elements of your image. So anyways, I'll link to this page in the description below for you to check it out further. Speaking of agents, Google accidentally leaked their AI agent project called Jarvis this week. So they accidentally leaked it on the Chrome extension store, and this was only on there for a really short amount of time, and they were pretty quick to remove it before too many people noticed. Now, there are rumors that Google plans to officially announce Jarvis in December, so that's pretty exciting. It's only a month away, and this is supposed to be an agent that will help you automate web browsing tasks in Google Chrome. So it could potentially help you book flights, answer emails, order food, or do research for you. In any case, I think next year will be huge in terms of legit AI agents that can automate a lot of work for us. In other news, Black Forest Labs added 2 new models, FLUX 1.1 Pro Ultra and RAW. So the Ultra mode allows you to generate 4 times higher image resolutions, up to 4 MP, while maintaining an impressive generation time of only 10 seconds per sample. And they also release a RAW mode, which they claim significantly increases diversity in human subjects and enhances the realism of nature photography. So here are some examples. I mean, just look at the resolution and details of this image. All the leaves are super crisp and sharp, plus this looks very amateur. Like, the lighting isn't perfect. This looks like it was taken by a regular human on a hike, without any professional equipment or lighting. Here's another example where, I mean, if you just saw this photo online, at least for me, I would never have suspected that this was generated with AI. Everything looks very realistic and amateur. Like, this isn't a really polished and perfect photo that you see with previous versions of Flux or Stable Diffusion. Here's another example where everything is super detailed. And this is the advantage of having an image that's 4 times the resolution as the normal FLUX 1.1 Pro. So if you zoom in on this, you can see it's a lot higher resolution. Now, of course, there is some uncanny stuff like her shirt here. I don't think the designs are necessarily consistent. Same with the text. Plus, her face does seem too polished. This looks like a Flux face. But other than that, the lighting looks very amateur. This is quite a hard shadow, so it's not taken with any like professional equipment. Same with the shadow here. You can see it's very hard. Plus the background, the room, everything just looks very normal and realistic. Here's another example. Again, super detailed. Everything looks really nice, but there are still some flaws like this thing on the top of this guy's head and the text on this sign here. And then, oh my God, why is there a candle on top of this cup? So still some uncanny stuff going on if you really pay attention. Here's another example, but overall, I mean, this is super realistic and detailed. So here's an example with RAW mode turned on. You can see this looks very realistic and authentic. Here's another one with RAW mode turned on, and again, this looks really normal, I must say. Now, note that this is the Pro model, so this is not open source. This is closed source. You cannot fine-tune it or run it locally on your computer, and you could only run it through their API. But, I mean, if they're able to achieve this, I'm hoping that the open source community can also fine-tune some super realistic and raw models that are compatible with FLUX Dev and FLUX Schnell. So that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know what you think of all of this. Which tool are you most excited about? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week, I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.